Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. AnneMoss Rogers, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I am really looking forward to our time together. I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to do this. I'm super excited to talk with you about your blog and your books and your life. Like we talked about before we hit record, everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And what we know is when you tell your story to our listeners, they're going to connect with you. It could be your favorite subject in high school. It could be something that happened in your childhood, but they'll find something that they connect with you about, and it'll inspire and motivate them to do things that they've been putting off. And it may be starting a blog. It may be, writing a book. It may be, calling their mother and telling her that they love her, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But we're all about inspiring and motivating. And I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this journey with us.
Well, thank you so much. I love that you also focus on that kind of connection and belonging, of making people feel like they're not alone and, a part of something. And I think that's really lovely and probably, a good part of your success thus far, because I think that you've definitely gotten a lot of success with just 90 episodes as of this recording.
We're just over 100.
Yeah, well, I think that's, that's good to get as many reviews as you've got with so few episodes.
Yeah.
And I know that's not few to you.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to feel that way, because we have 5 interviews today, right?
Yeah.
We have 19 this week. We'll do over 50 this month.
Wow.
And having 100 episodes and doing 50 in 1 month is kind of crazy. We had over 200 requests last week to be on this podcast.
Oh, wow. I feel really honored now.
Isn't that amazing? I was blown away, completely blown away. And I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to sleep at night, to be honest with you, because it's energizing, right? It's like all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodwork to want to be a part of our program. And it's validating and it's super exciting, so.
Well, people want to hear stories, right?
Yeah.
And they want to hear stories other than the really depressing stories we're getting now. Whereas part of my story is depressing, but part of it's not.
But you're victorious because of it. And I think that's a big, big deal. And one of the things we talk about a lot, and we've talked about it 3 times already today, is if you look hard enough at any situation, it doesn't matter what it is. And it could be the most painful thing, like what happened with your son, could be the most painful thing that's ever happened to you in your life. But if you look hard enough, you'll find a positive. You'll find something, right? That you can sort of hang your hat on, or you can hang your hopes on and go forward from there, right? And to your credit, you pivoted and went out and did something positive that now is helping thousands and thousands of people. That's a big deal. That's a bigger deal than most people realize, right? Because you could have just decided to recess into your own world and not reach out and not make a contribution, right? I'm so proud of you. I'm about to bust. So
thank you.
I really am. I don't know anybody that has a heart that can't read your situation and not be proud of you. It's not possible. And having gone what you've gone through to do what you've done is just amazing, absolutely amazing. So I can't wait to have your life story on tape. So let's
Oh,
do this.
wow.
With your permission, let's start with where you were born. We'll go up to today, and we'll talk about anything else that you're working on currently and anything that you're working on for tomorrow too, okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
So where were you born?
Originally from
Mhm.
Fayetteville, North Carolina,
Really? Okay.
home of the 82nd Airborne. My father was not in the military, but my grandfather was the treasurer of Cumberland County, and um, they built a house there in 1929.
Mhm.
And I just sold my ancestral home this year, which was really very hard to
Yeah.
do. But I don't need another house in Fayetteville. So, I decided that, we need to let the next generation enjoy, a beautiful neighborhood. And so I grew up there. Then when I was 12, we moved and lived in Medford, New Jersey for a little bit. I broke my neck there. So I had a pretty serious accident. Fortunately, I was not paralyzed, but just by like the width of a hair.
Mm.
We would move and live in Alabama for a year, Montgomery. I'm going to tell you, I didn't love Montgomery, Alabama in the 1970s. And then we moved back to Fayetteville when I was a teenager, and I went back and saw all my old friends. And I ended up going to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Wow.
And I graduated with a bachelor's in journalism with a concentration in advertising and marketing. I'm not even going to tell you what year, but
That's
it was a
okay.
while.
You don't have to talk about years. We're good. We're good. You started college when you were 5. I got it. We're good.
That's right. It was a while ago, but I was there when Michael Jordan was there.
Yeah, so
So
you're a Tar Heel.
I am a Tar Heel, and I am a huge Carolina basketball fan.
I love that. I love that. Michael Jordan will do that to you. He'll make you a
Oh yeah.
Bulls fan, right? He'll make you a Wizards fan, right? Really, we're a Michael Jordan fan, but we're going to follow him.
I was a fan long before that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was cheering them on, 5 years old.
Yeah.
That was our family gathering. We would all watch the game together when the games would come on television. So
I love it. That's cool. So where did you graduate? You graduated in Fayetteville High School?
Graduated from Terry Sanford High School, went to UNC, and after UNC, I moved to Richmond, Virginia to work eventually at the Martin Agency, which is an advertising agency.
Gotcha. So when you were growing up, who was the most influential person to you growing up?
Wow. Gosh, I'd have to say, do you mean a famous person or somebody in my town?
No, just influential to you. So like, for instance, the most influential person to me growing up by far, by a mile, was my grandfather, my mother's father, my maternal grandfather.
I'd say there were 2 people that were major influences on me, and one was my Catherine Nimmox, who is my aunt.
Okay.
And the second was my theater teacher, Bo Thorpe.
Okay.
Loved, I took theater for at least a dozen years and grew up on stage, and it's why I speak now,
Right.
because I'm very comfortable on stage because I did my 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
Plays, and all of it was live back then. I mean, nothing was taped. And these days, when I do go do a live interview and they're like, this is live, I'm like, I'm okay with it. That's where I started,
We're going to be okay. Yeah.
Right. It might not be perfect, but I'm used to that, and that's all right.
That's a good training ground.
Yeah, it is. So I'd say those.
One of the things that's feared more than death in the United States is public speaking.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And I will say also that I was really influenced a lot by Dean Smith, the basketball coach.
Yeah.
He was one of the first to integrate his team. And he just wasn't afraid about being bold
Yeah.
and, putting himself out there in situations that weren't popular or highly stigmatized. And I really admired that. And I'd
Isn't that
say that
amazing?
has, yeah, yeah, it is. That had a lot of influence on my life.
So think about this. Dean Smith was a high profile national champion winning basketball coach. How many thousands of people did he inspire, including you?
Right.
Just by being himself, right? Just by being bold, just by not asking permission, right? He asked for forgiveness, I'm sure, but he didn't ask for permission. He just went out and did it.
He did. And that fearlessness is something that I really admired. And because I was a lot like that. And as a woman, people try to back then would kind of try to push you down and say you didn't have permission. I'd like, well, yeah, I do. And this is going to be unpopular, but I'm doing it anyway.
Right. Good for you. Good for you. So you go to school, you get your degree at UNC from what was your degree?
Journalism with a concentration in marketing and copywriting.
Okay.
So I was copywriter at an ad agency, which means I wrote ads, TV, radio, print. I made up ads.
Gotcha. Quick question. Let's go back just a second. I forgot to ask you, what was your favorite subject in high school?
Oh, English.
Easily, right?
Oh, yeah. And then I love being on the yearbook staff. I love being on the yearbook staff, and I love being on the track team. And I wasn't a track star. I wasn't really very good at track at all, but I love the team camaraderie. I like the fact that it was a more diverse group.
Right.
So I was kind of exposed. I had friends kind of out of my usual friend group that I created on the track team, and I really like that. I really embrace change and diversity. I've always liked that.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing other points of view, learning about other cultures. I'm really fascinated by that. So, it started to kind of help me take a step into that. And then college, once it started to present those opportunities where I can meet all people from all over the world, I was fascinated by that.
Yeah.
And I made friends easily because I asked a lot of questions. And people like to talk about stuff like that. They knew I was really interested.
And people love it when you're interested.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And they love talking about themselves.
Yeah, that's true. They do.
Right? You ask them about themselves, you give them permission to tell you their story, and they will, and they enjoy it. And you bond.
Right. Right. And I think I've become a better listener over the years, but I started to develop that with that insatiable curiosity.
Yeah.
So I have that lifetime insatiable curiosity that I think keeps me young,
Yeah. I'm with you. So let me ask you a question. So you get into marketing, right?
Right.
You work in Richmond, you said, right?
Right.
And what was your favorite thing about being in marketing?
Oh, I love working with the people. I love presenting the ideas when you came up with them. I love seeing them produced. Back then, you would get the slicks. Once they were produced, you didn't get them digitally. That was always like, wow, the result of my work, or the commercial on TV. That was just a lot of fun. But I really liked working with a team and a group. I think that connection piece was probably the most fun.
That's awesome.
Having the friends at work, and also when you would get that relationship, we worked in pairs at the time, a copywriter and an art director. And so you would work with another individual on campaigns. And then there would always be an account executive. And some teams you would put together would be just like magic, and it's like you just worked so beautifully together, and to find that kind of chemistry was such an awesome thing to experience. And I'm just really absolutely thrilled to have had that.
Yeah. So how long were you in marketing?
Over 25 years. So it would evolve into digital marketing. I would own a digital marketing firm. I ended up leaving an agency when I got pregnant and I started freelancing. So when they were little and up until my youngest got into middle school, I freelanced, and then I started a digital marketing firm in 2010
Okay.
with a business partner.
Okay.
Because that's the way the world was going, digital
Yeah,
marketing.
that's
So
true.
I was good at content marketing, at search engine optimization. I got all that. I wasn't afraid of the tech. I wasn't afraid of computers.
Sounds like you're not afraid of much.
I am not afraid of much. You're right. I have a little arachnophobia, but I've worked on it, and I'm
Yeah.
better than I used to be.
Yeah, we have a bout of arachnophobia around here too.
Do you really?
Everything stops when there's a spider. Everything. Right?
Everything. Well, now I am better, but they still freak me out. But it used to be I would stand on a chair and somebody would have to come kill it, or I
Right.
was never moving.
That's my reality. Dad, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how long were you in digital marketing?
Oh God, from 1995, and I sold my digital marketing business in 2007, 2018, 2017 or 18. I can't
Right.
remember which.
Well,
I
that's
think it was
okay.
2000. Yeah, I can't remember which, but so as soon as there was a little blinking dot on a computer called the internet, I was sucked in because I spent so much time at the library researching, and now I could and I had to find a babysitter and in order to go to the library, and then I had to go home, and then I didn't have enough dimes to the Xerox machine. All that went away.
Yeah.
And as soon as some little geeky guy showed me what the internet was, and it was just black and white before it had graphics,
Yeah.
but it was a great research tool.
I
And I
remember
could
that.
type it in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
get all the information I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And that I had it installed in 1995. And
Yeah.
and so many people didn't even know what it was.
Yeah. The whole world opened up for you, it sounds like.
It did.
So owning that firm for 12 years, what was your favorite thing about owning that?
I think a lot of it was the autonomy. What I didn't like was that financial part, but that's where my business partner came in handy. So
Right.
before I actually merged with him and I was a freelancer, I would bring teams together kind of like a manager
Right.
and be the account executive, and I had all those roles to play. That gave me a really good bird's eye view and appreciation of all the roles.
Right.
Probably more than I had appreciation than I had before.
Right.
But there's also all the responsibility on you too. I'm not working, I don't make money.
Right.
But I had two jobs. I was taking care of my children, and at first that was the primary focus, and it was kind of a side gig. And then my side gig started to become more of a major focus. But the point was, when my kids got off the bus, I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And I would never say to somebody, well, it's, you need to do that, or you don't need to do that. But for me, given my situation, those memories I have with my son, I wouldn't trade them for the world, because that's all I got now.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's a really difficult subject, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Let's talk about what happened in 2015.
So I had two sons. I raised two sons.
Mm-hmm.
Richard is my oldest child. He lives in LA and he is an editor, has his own YouTube channel. And then my younger son's name was Charles.
Okay.
Very, very creative. Most popular kid in school, always. I mean, everyone loved him when he walked in. All faces turned toward him like he had sunshine in his pocket and he was there to hand it out. Quirky, different. And then I realized he's a creative genius, and all the little quirks and weird stuff that go along with that.
Yeah.
And he questioned everything. So he could be kind of exhausting at the same time. Also very demanding, always wanted to have people over constantly at the house. And I would find out later why. And I'll tell you when we get to that part. It was around high school when Charles, my younger child, started to struggle more. We had noticed some issues earlier. I had brought them up. I'd gotten rebuffed. I didn't give up when I got rebuffed, but there weren't a lot of resources. And
Right.
they were mental health issues like anxiety. And he didn't love school. And even though he was brilliant, he didn't love school. He didn't like the worksheets and the rote memorizations. He loved English. He loved acting. But around high school, he started to change. And I couldn't figure out really what it was. And then he got elected to be on homecoming court as a sophomore, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And my older son gets chosen that year too, which was also very rare because Richard was a strong introvert, but he had done this big film series thing. And so he became well known for that. Richard's my senior. He actually won that year. Charles is being escorted by his favorite teacher, Carrie Fretwell, who is the theater teacher. And I remember being on that field and thinking, as everybody was looking down on that field, and they must have thought, man, that family's got it all. Look, she's got two children, so popular on the homecoming court. Things are going great for that family, and they wouldn't know it was complete and utter chaos. Because Charles had started to abuse or misuse drugs and alcohol. And we had talked about this, and I didn't know what was going on or why. And what I would find out later is that he was numbing thoughts of suicide.
Oh, my goodness.
And he would eventually start to use so many drugs and alcohol that we were afraid for his life. He started taking like incredible risks. And we would find out later that is a symptom of depression, is taking those risks.
Yeah. So
we had him kidnapped out of his bed and took him to basically in the wilderness, which is kind of a therapeutic setting. After that, he would go to a therapeutic boarding school. He came back in 2014, having spent about 22 months outside our home in some kind of placement. And then during that year, which I didn't know, he became addicted to heroin. And he was selling my silverware, my family's silverware. And, it's not something we use. We use it at Thanksgiving and Christmas.
So you don't miss
So
it.
we didn't notice it. And by the time I did, I had one spoon left, and he would eventually confess to being addicted to heroin. And long story short, he'd do the detox and the rehab. He would relapse, and then he would call me, and I'm like, where are you? We had a phone call. We had several phone calls that day. And he took his life that night. And I didn't know it, like early in the morning. And we would be notified the next day that my son killed himself.
Hmm.
And I was so shocked because I thought Charles loved life.
Yeah.
I thought that's why he had surrounded himself with friends all the time. And what I would find out is he surrounded himself with friends all the time because he was afraid of what he would do to himself at night.
Oh my gosh.
Because he struggled so much. And that's why he did drugs and alcohol, to numb those feelings of suicide. Because in that moment, it's a bad coping strategy, right?
Yeah.
But to him, it worked, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, that's what added to his demise in the end.
Yeah.
So at first, you're just like underwater emotionally.
Mhm.
You don't want to get out of bed. You've got to take a shower. You have to eat. You have to do normal life things. And you don't want to do any of that
Yeah.
because it's all so hard. I mean, I remember it was about 2 years struggling just to get out of bed in the morning. I had to have a regimen of, AnneMoss, just put your feet on the floor. That's all you have to do. I
Yeah.
told myself that every morning for 2 years so I could get out of bed. And then after that, I'd just give myself the next step. Because right at first, there was one time I couldn't keep everything in order, and I had to do it slowly, one step at a time, because one morning I rushed it, ended up getting in the shower, but I hadn't taken off my pajamas or my slippers. So I'm standing in the shower with my clothes on, and I'm like, I forgot to take my clothes off. And I just felt like really low at that point, like I've got to get some kind of system down. And that's when I did the just put your feet on the floor in one step, because it really was like being emotionally underwater, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But I do remember right after it happened and we came home, the police told us at the restaurant where we had dinner one night, they found us and they told us in the parking lot. And when we came home and we collapsed on the floor, I remember thinking, I can't do this. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then it was like, yeah, you are going to do this. Other people have done it. And as bad as it is right now, and it was brutal, it'll never be as bad as getting the news that part is over, and it will never, ever hurt that much again.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I didn't want to kill myself, but I just didn't want to wake up and face it all. And that's what I kept telling myself is, as much as it will hurt tomorrow, it'll never hurt as much as getting the news. And that was my mantra for a very long time. And I would develop kind of a list of mantras to help me through the grief episode. Like, you can do this, AnneMoss. You can do this. It won't last forever. It will lift. And when it lifts, you can distract yourself. So I felt the feeling, because a lot of people, they say it's too painful and they want to push it away. But what I want everyone to know is, when you do that avoidance thing, you numb it with drugs or alcohol or food or gambling, you end up numbing it in a way that keeps you in that raw, ugly place longer than you need to be.
Yeah. You don't advance.
Right.
Right.
Actually deciding to feel the feelings, which the intense part lasts 60 to 90 seconds. Yes, it takes you to the floor. Yes, you curl up into a ball. Yes, you kick the wall, scream, shout. It's hard. But then that feeling of when it lifts, you're just like, oh, just when I couldn't take it any longer.
Yeah.
That I noticed that rhythm of how long it lasts and that it would lift. And I noticed progress and I started writing. I was really struggling, and the writing helped me process all of that. And I started writing in public. And I thought, people are going to think I'm trying to ask for pity. But, I just didn't worry about it. I just kept writing. And I wrote a newspaper article, and that went viral. And then all of a sudden, I had this platform, and I had people listening. And I felt this sense of responsibility, but I didn't go out there and do what I'm doing now to really help people. It was to help myself at first. So it really was a self-care step.
Yeah, you were just working through it, right? It was
Right.
the process, and you were going through the process.
But the beautiful thing that happened was that other people that had been through something similar started to connect with me.
Yeah.
And it felt like that connection was important.
Yeah.
My friends didn't really know exactly what to do, so they weren't as active in my life as I would have liked for them to be. They had a lot of fear around them. Nobody wanted to talk about Charles, and that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about.
Right.
But I didn't need to sit with my friends and talk about it exhaustively for an hour. It'd be like 3 to 5 minutes, because I didn't want you to glaze over them and erase them from my family tree.
Right. Right.
As long as I had that acknowledgement, I could move on to another subject and chat about something else.
His life was
But
significant. His life was
right,
significant. And that's what you needed to make sure people understood, right? Is
exactly.
this is, he's passed away, right? But his memory is not gone. And he lived a significant life.
Yeah. And, I'm going to tell you, every bereaved parent, our greatest fear is that you are going to forget our child.
Right.
So when you say something to us like 10 years later, we're still visiting the cemetery, and you're making a criticism about that, what does it matter to you? If that is what is helping me support my grief, which I will live with for the rest of my life,
Right.
that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. That is a natural reaction to losing someone you love. And there is nothing wrong with going to see their grave or talking about them 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And people act like there's something wrong with somebody. And a lot of times they want the way you were before, and they haven't adapted to how you've changed.
Right.
And a lot of times I find that those of us who are bereaved are having to educate those who are not. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but it is the way it is. And I don't mind telling people that.
Yeah. Well, it's what you're doing, though, by sharing with them, you're equipping them. Okay. They're coming into this thing and they're not sure what to say. They're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing, right? So the thing that you dealt with your friends was they didn't know what to say, and they were scared to death they were going to say the wrong thing, right? Like they were going to sound insensitive, or they were going to sound the wrong way to you. And they knew, guaranteed, they knew that you were super sensitive at the time. You were vulnerable, and you were going through these different stages, right? You were going through this process. And I'm so glad from the bottom of my heart that you started writing.
So
I've talked to so many people that are authors, right? One gentleman a few days ago we had on our podcast wrote a book about his mom, and it helped him tremendously to deal with the grief of losing his mother. He told his mother's story and honored her by doing that, right? You're honoring Charles every single day that your feet hit the floor.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you're helping tens of thousands of people get equipped for what they may have to go through. And you're helping them get equipped for anything they're. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.